Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Qué Golazo podcast. The Gold Cup coverage crew is back. U.S. men's national team legend Jimmy Conrad. I'm Heath Pearce, and we're back to talk about the U.S. playing against Canada in the final game of the group stages. Obviously, after Jimmy leaves after the first half of the episode, we're going to be having Canadian men's national team legend Dwayne de Rosario joining me. He's got a new book out. He's also going to preview this match from the Canadian side. But for now, let's talk to Jimmy. Jimmy, what's going on, man? How are you?
Well, if Dwayne doesn't dedicate at least a chapter to me because I was his teammate and really gave him the start, I'm going to be severely disappointed. But no, I'm excited that I'm getting bumped for a legend. He's a proper MLS legend, and I hope that he gets the respect that he deserves. He scored so many big goals, so clutch for so many different teams over the years and for Canada as well. So really excited for Dwayne, and I wish him the very best as always.
Yeah, so I will find that out in due time. I don't want to have the two of you on at the same time because of the rivalry. Also,
sure.
Teammates. Also, if it turns out that he didn't make a chapter of the book, I don't want this to turn awkward.
That could get awkward. Awkward.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens. But let's talk about the Gold Cup. Right, we're going into the final round for the U.S. and Canada. Both teams on 6 points. The implications of this for anybody who hasn't been paying attention or doesn't understand the tiebreaker so far is obviously points. If you're tied on points, you then go to goal differential. And right now they are even on goal differential between the U.S. and Canada on +6. And then the next tiebreaker is goals scored, which Canada has scored more goals. So it essentially leads to the U.S. needing to win this game from how I understand how this works. I believe. I think I need.
No, you're right. And they need to. Yeah, you win the group. You just avoid the bigger teams, which includes Mexico. You don't want to play Mexico until the final. And I'm banking on that, everybody, because I want to be in Vegas on August 1st, the final. Everybody wants to be there. And you should come join us because Heath and I will probably find our way to Vegas. You always need a reason to go to Vegas. I need that reason.
I agree. And Jimmy, just so, again, I want people to take a step back like 3 weeks to a month when the U.S. we thought may lose to Honduras in the semifinal of the Nations League. There were moments in that game that could have gone either way. And then when all we really wanted was a U.S.-Mexico final, right? That's no disrespect to Costa Rica, Honduras. They played great, and I thought both of them had chances to actually reach a final. But you wanted U.S.-Mexico, and in this case too, for the Gold Cup, a different set of players in a lot of ways. Some of the same players from Mexico, many new looks from Mexico, a lot of new looks from the U.S. But you want a U.S.-Mexico final. I
want it because it's a great test for our players. The pressure, the anticipation, the expectation, like building up for a Mexico game is much different than any other game you're probably going to play in your whole entire life because there's just an extra piece of juice to it. And you want your players to be subjected to that so that you can find out who can handle that type of adversity and who can't. So it's really important especially as we're trying to decide how these players are going to help us moving forward, potentially in World Cup qualifying. And if they do well, and I'm looking at you, Daryl DK, being a World Cup starter, in particular. So it's one thing to do it against Martinique, where there's not a lot of pressure on the ball and, they're not as organized and they're clearly not as fit. They can't run and press like a Mexico will. So it's important to get those types of games. I think Canada will give us that type of challenge this on Sunday because they are going to come with a little bit more. And yes, I know they don't have Jonathan David, and I know they don't have Alphonso Davies, and those are two big losses, but they're still whooping up on the teams that they should. And I think this is a Canada team that will qualify for the World Cup for the first time since 1986. I think they have that type of depth now to make that happen. And I also think when I look at Panama, when I look at Honduras, when I look at Costa Rica, they're still holding on to that older generation, and the younger generation hasn't really done well enough to kick out the older players. So they're in that transitional thing, and I think Canada can take advantage of that. So I'm just kind of getting ahead of myself in some ways, but these are massive games. We need our players to be subjected to as many massive games as possible, which is why we're all disappointed we didn't qualify for the Olympics. It was another opportunity to see some of our top young players playing meaningful games with a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And okay, Jimmy, I'm going to give you some parameters here, right? Because I think it's very hard to have you preview the U.S. without mentioning Canada, right? With regard to the U.S. playing Canada. So feel free to dip in and out of the implications of where Canada have been so far in the group stages and players to watch out for. We'll leave the bulk of that for Dwayne, but for you, was coming out of the Martinique game, 7 changes. Was anybody super impressive to you? Did anybody stand out? Did anybody say, I didn't start in the first game and I need to be starting from here on out?
Daryl Dike, 100%. Daryl Dike for me, I know it's Martinique and I want to add that caveat, but the things that he does, the way that he can combine, he can get on the end of crosses, he can run in behind, he can beat people on the dribble, he can create a goal on his own. And we saw that with his second goal. I think it was supposed to be his third, but they gave an own goal for the second one. So, okay, take away the hat trick.
By the way, devastating.
For sure. Yeah. But his goal, I mean, yes, the first touch was maybe a bit of an accident, but he's still opportunistic enough to make something out of it. The second touch, third touch for the finish, world-class. We're talking about 2 world-class touches to put him in that position. Now, of course, Gyasi Zardes comes on for him, and 2 minutes later, he scores a pretty good goal himself. So I kind of want to see. I mean, we set up in a 3-4-1-2, it seemed like, in this particular one. So I'd like to see Zardes and Daryl Dike up top. We had Matthew Hoppe, who I thought did well in his first ever cap for the national team, whipped in a good cross for the first goal and put himself in good spots to make things happen. But Zardes and Dike up top, that's something I want to see for the Canada game, and I hope that we get it. Now, I don't know if we're going to see a lot of Roldan. I thought Busio looked pretty good. Williamson, again, I thought looked pretty good. Shaq Moore still really busy up and down, and now with Reggie Cannon potentially out due to a hamstring issue, he might get a good run of games. This could be a good opportunity for Shaq Moore to take that. I guess the big decision is, do we go with a back 4 or do we go with a back 3 with our 2 wing backs? And yeah, I don't know. It's tough. For me, the Martinique stuff, it's so hard to read into it. You win 6-1. You know, when I look at the center backs, you and I look at that spot, right? We're very, almost hypercritical of that. Mm-hmm. But when you're on the ball and you have so much time on the ball, you can make 5 different passes because you're not under any pressure. It's really hard to know what our center backs can and can't do. But I'm impressed with James Sands. I mean, you still can only play the team that's in front of you, Heath, right? So you got to do what you can do. And I thought the guys were solid for the most part.
Yeah. I agree with that. I think interestingly, I thought James Sands was really solid today. I thought that the issue that they were running into was once they were 2-0 up, they kind of settled down, and you saw a little bit of arrogance come out of this team of just sort of like, oh, let's kind of just relax a little bit into the game and not keep putting. I thought they pressed well even when it was 2-0, but in terms of their quality in possession and their intent with possession, I thought that dropped off. I thought Busio struggled a little bit at that early on. Second half, I think he was great again in the second half, but a lot of that was because Williamson and Busio were sitting right on top of the back 3, and there was nowhere for them to go. Right. And I don't think Robinson is a super great on the dribble, like kind of driving out to be that first sort of pass out of the back to break the first lines of pressure. And Zimmerman's not great in the air, great on set pieces, but I don't think that's his forte. So with Sands in the middle, you do have a guy who's decent on the ball, but then you have 2 other players around him that are sort of clogging space. As soon as they started to open up and push those players higher up the field, I thought they were much better. In terms of change, in terms of players that I think should go back into the lineup, obviously I think we'll see Acosta come back in. I think we'll see Leggett come back in. But then it's a matter of like, who do you keep? Do you keep Williamson on the field? I don't think they're going to put Ewell back in because I think Busio or Williamson deserve to be in that sort of first 3. I thought Roldan was a really solid worker, but felt disconnected at times because I know you had said 3-4-1-2. Is that what you had?
That's what I think they settled in, and I think I predicted a similar lineup.
And my thing was that a lot of times Roldan was almost like a 3-4-3, where they were missing that piece. Where sometimes you had Hoppe coming all the way back or Dike coming back to get the ball, and there was certainly some good entry balls and things like that, but it felt disconnected because Williamson and Busio, who are both used to coming back, getting it off the center back's feet, and being like, okay, spread out, we'll make the play from here. We're sitting on top of a Sands who's comfortable, and it just at times felt disjointed. And then I thought that there was a lot of sloppy passing that needs to be cleaned up. But in terms of bringing players back into the squad, I would love to see Gyasi Zardes up top with Dike. I think that's something really strong. Even though they're similar in a lot of ways, they're also different. I think Gyasi Zardes and Dike can make the game predictable as well. As you know, as a center back, the best thing you can do is have 2 workhorses that at least in transition go, okay, I know that when I'm a center back or I'm a defender, I can release my fullback. I can release my 6 or my 8 to step further out. I know where the game becomes predictable because you at least you have that first guy that's not there to win the ball, but just make those players on the ball put their head down or make them uncomfortable. And having guys like that can be that first line, I think, is super important, especially in a team that isn't training together much, right? They're not getting a ton of time together. So the more predictable the game can be, the better they're going to be and the better they're going to respond from that.
Yeah, I would say just to get into the lineup, I think you go with Matt Turner again. I think he's been really solid. I think you give him that last group stage game and maybe you give him the whole tournament at that point. And it's unfortunate because I would like to see Sean Johnson, but if Sean Johnson didn't get this game against Martinique, then I think Matt Turner is going to kind of be the guy the rest of the way. I go with the back three. I'll stay with Miles Robinson, James Sands, Walker Zimmerman. I want to see more of that. I'll bring in Sam Vines for Bello. I thought Bello was solid, but let's bring Sammy Vines in. He scored his first goal against Haiti. The Williamson Busio one, probably bring Acosta back in just to have a little bit more experience in the spine of the team. And then I'd say Williamson will probably have to make way for him because Busio does a little bit more going forward. Though I do like Williamson's game a lot. I still think he's underappreciated. I think Shaq Moore will stay as the other wing back. And then you bring Leggett where Roldan was. You bring in Zardes for Hoppy, and you keep DK in. And I think you're cooking with some gas there. I really think that's a pretty strong team. I think you got a lot of experience in the middle of the team. The people that we're gonna have to cope. Canada's gonna have some possession. They're gonna have some control over the game. So I'm curious to see. Okay, we're gonna press. They're gonna break that press. Then what? What is our team made of? Then when we're pinned back a little bit, and it's less about the defensive side of it. I think that's almost the easier side because whatever you can get. 7 or 8 guys back behind the ball, and it's going to be hard to break down. But what do we do when we're trying to regain composure, right? We're trying to regain the flow and the transition. We're in charge because there's some teams, we can name a few of them, that even when they don't have the ball, they're still in charge. And when I see this team, and obviously we've got a bunch of young guys and guys that are trying to prove themselves, and it's going to feel disjointed at times. But some of my favorite teams are when the ones you can sense they're still in charge, even when they don't have the ball. And I'd love for us to start to adopt that type of identity all the way to it doesn't matter who's on the field. I would just love to see that at this level. So that's what I'll be looking for. Can we still be a team that's super comfortable when we don't have the ball and still making sure we don't collapse on top of each other so that we can transition in a meaningful way? These are a lot of the things that they have to solve. And I think Canada will at least push us a little bit more to have to figure out answers for that. Because Haiti, Martinique, they're going to come at you. Maybe I'll give them 5 minutes per half where they make it a little bit hard for us. Canada is going to be more like 15, 20, 25 minutes where it's going to be a bit difficult. It's going to be chippy. There's not going to be as much flow and rhythm, but how do we regain that? Right. And those are the players that we love to see on the ball. We talked about it in previous podcasts with, John O'Brien, Claudio Reyna, and those types of players that you can play in any situations and they can help us reestablish that.
Yeah, I agree. And interestingly enough, this U.S. team, and you talk about playing with a back three, I think one, it's the best lineup we have, but two, we don't have wingers right now. Again, with Arriola out, we don't have any traditional guys that can get up and back on the wings outside of our wing backs, right? So if you are putting, maybe we get Reggie Cannon back, but if not, you've got more and bring Sammy Vines. Getting those players high and wide, I think, will be really important because on the flip side. And not to get too much into Canada, but it's important for the context of this U.S. team.
Of course.
Tejan Buchanan was the best player for Canada today. I thought Canada also, not today, but when they played against Haiti, I thought Tejan Buchanan was very, very busy, and a lot of the attack stemmed from him. So if you're playing in a back three and your fullbacks are high and wide, or your wingbacks are high and wide, there's going to be these positions, and we saw that with Albert Ellis when he gets into these wide positions. That vertical attack on stretching a team can be very dangerous, right? And it's those times that you said where you lose the ball in transition, they break that first pressure, the second pressure. Do you have that composure now to put out a fire and to put things away? And again, that's what I thought Yule had done well in the past. That's what Acosta will do well in these types of things, to be able to cover that ground, to put out fires. But it's going to be interesting to see that the way the U.S. they're going to be kept a lot more honest throughout the game. The flip side to that is I thought Canada against Haiti struggled to really push their lines out and keep drawing it, like sort of just a reset. And in fact, the goal that came for Haiti came on the fact that they slowly moved out on a chance to clear their lines, and they were able to combine 1, 2, 3, 4 passes and get it behind a score. And having those players in high and wide positions are going to start to draw, eventually push that back line deeper and deeper, or force players out of those positions. That's going to create a lot of those pockets. I don't know who's going to fill those in, whether Leggett can pull the strings there or combine with Busio and Acosta. But I do think there's going to be those pockets for the U.S. To attack if that's the lineup that Greg Berhalter rolls out. But there's no unfamiliarity here. That's the other thing I wanted to say is what it was like when you'd get into a Gold Cup or you'd get into a national team game. You play against Honduras, Guatemala, other players, other teams that had throughout the years a core number of players playing in Major League Soccer. So there's no secrets from Canada. The amount of players that they had, Maxime Crepeau stood on his head against Haiti and was very, very good. But there's no secret to like who the guys are. You know, against Martinique, you have some ideas and you watch some video, but these are not most of these guys. Osorio, Kyle Larin when he was, and he's hot right now. You know, there's just I think a little bit higher of a closer of a bar between the two teams that they will punish you.
Well, I'll jump in and say that Canada gave us trouble. We lost in Toronto that game 2-0. When we had our A team, we didn't play particularly well. I thought Canada was very well prepared, and we didn't seem like we had any answers. And they made plays, and I think that's going to be the difference in this game: is who's going to step up and make the plays. Right now, I think Canada looks at us, Heath, as I don't say big brother, little brother, but they know they're closing the gap, and they know that they're hungry to beat us in a way that I don't think we're the same. I don't think we're as hungry to beat them as they are to beat us. And that's going to be a great test for our guys. Now, this particular group of players, maybe that's different because there is some hunger within our group that they want to make the team. They want to continue to get minutes, and all that good stuff. And they're looking forward. So there maybe we can match that, but it's going to be chippy. And I think Canada, if we're going to win, they're going to make us earn that win. And I like that. And I'm glad that we're being faced with that in this particular matchup. And it's starting to get closer to being a proper rivalry in some ways. And the more that Canada comes in and beats us up, that's what's going to happen. I will say that if any soft players are going to show up on Sunday versus Canada, it's going to be a long day for them. Like they're going to have to be prepared to get kicked every single step of the way. And we're going to see, I think, a little bit of a different look, like which players can handle getting kicked and can not get emotional and just get on with the game, and which ones it's going to rattle them, right? And they just can't like re-engage with what's happening. I think the pace of it's going to be, it was pretty wide open in some moments in the second half, in particular against Martinique, going back and forth. I'm like, what am I even watching right now? So that gives me a little bit of some concern, because that's a great time where experience does matter. Put your foot on the ball, slow it down. Let's just maintain possession. This isn't the time to make it a track meet. Let's just make them work. Let the ball do the moving, right? So that will be very important as well. But I think when you bring in the Legettes, you bring in the Acostas, if Jossie starts up top with DK, you're going to have that in the spine of the team, which is important. But Canada is going to come out, and I wonder if they're going to sit back, like you said, against Haiti and kind of adopt that style a little bit, because I think they have more success against us when they come out and try to punch us in the face. And I'm curious as to what Canada needs to do, because to what we said at the very beginning, they just need to draw to win the group, whereas we actually need to go out and get the win.
Yeah. I mean, do you think that this U.S. squad, if they don't go on to win the tournament, or they struggle or don't get the win against Canada, which they need to do in order to win the group and avoid Mexico before the final, do you think it comes down to lack of international experience? Do you think that's an actual factor that would play in it? Because when I watched large stretches of this game, when they were good, they were very good, but when they were bad, they were very bad. And there was youth that you could see in there. There was inexperience. There was a lack of maturity, a lack of leadership at times, where you see, you know how it goes, where it's like one turnover, okay, no problem. Then the next guy gets it, bad turnover. Next guy gets it, bad turnover. And you find yourself 5-6 minutes down the line and you go, oh my goodness, we are so far, like we've lost the complete rhythm of the game. And now everybody's trying to make up for that or force the next pass. And it's just like, who's going to be the one that just grabs that ball back and slows it down? And I think, Busio showed that in a brief bits in the first game of this tournament, but in this one, not as much. Like, who's going to be the one that goes, I dictate the flow of play. We're going to keep the ball. We've been chasing it. We're doing doggies. Let's slow down. Do you think that comes down to experience?
It does in some capacity. It also just comes down to having some composure. I think Canada's going to probably pull some of that out of our players. They're going to pull out playing a little bit quicker. I do think, and you've played in these games before, where it's so clear that you're better than the other team. You have almost too much time on the ball, right? So everything starts to become a little bit more casual. And I just don't think we're ever going to have that moment against Canada. Like, the pace of the game is going to dictate a little bit more 1 and 2 touch. But that 1 and 2 touch, to your point, has to be clean. And you have to give passes that your teammates can actually do something with. And you're not stitching them up with the ball that's bouncing or whatever it may be. And that is where I think we're going to find those fine details and learn more about these players under these types of situations. I cannot wait for this game on Sunday. I can't wait to break it down afterwards. I could see us drawing this one. I'm leaning towards a 2-1 win. I'll definitely raise my hand and be biased. I think Canada will get something out of it. And in some ways, and I think I'm putting my coaching hat on, like my proud dad hat, I kind of want to see him score first because I want to see how we respond. And I think we have the guys up top. I mean, Daryl Dike is a special player. I think he showed it again tonight. But even he's going to have a challenge with Canada. And it's not just him individually. It's where's he picking up the ball, right? These are all these little things. You know, obviously, and against Martinique, these guys can come back and get it in those half spaces where Martinique's like, I'm a little too tired. I'm not going to chase you there. Canada's going to be right up your ass. You know what I mean? And they're going to be kicking you. And it's not going to be as easy to control the ball in the same way. And then maybe the thing that you had on against Martinique isn't on against Canada. So how do we solve those problems quickly? I'm buzzing for it because I think Canada is going to be a great test for us. And I think it's going to show what kind of mettle we have as we head into the knockout rounds.
I like that. All right, Jimmy. Well, listen, do you have any closing thoughts for us before we send you on your way?
I don't. I feel like I'm just excited for the match. I think that's the best way for me to say I'm all day USA. Let's go. I hope we win. But either way, we're going to learn a lot about these players. And I think that's great for us to know about the depth of our pool.
I like it. Well, thank you so much, Jimmy. I appreciate it. It's almost like you've played in some of these games to play for the national team. And we appreciate you breaking down.
Listen, I parlayed no caps, being uncapped going into the 2005 Gold Cup. And I played all 6 games. We won it. And I played in a World Cup a year later. So I'm really pulling for some of these players to have the same type of experience. And I wish them the very best. But yeah, you got to go out there and win these games that are in front of you.
I love it. I can't say more. You are a living example of the importance of this when you're playing against a Martinique who may not seem like, how do you judge anything that comes out of this? But certainly it's always another moment to prove yourself. So Jimmy, thank you so much for breaking down the US side. Everyone, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll welcome Dwayne de Rosario to talk about the Canadian side. Welcome back to Qué Golazo. Jimmy had us covered on the U.S. men's national team front. Now I welcome former Gold Cup winner, Team Canada captain. He holds the record for the most goals scored for Canada, top 5 in caps for Canada of all time, 4-time MLS Cup winner, an MLS pioneer, a Canadian football pioneer, and one of Canada's greatest ever athletes. And he's recently written an autobiography, which we'll talk about in a bit. Dwayne de Rosario, what's going on, man?
Good, buddy. Good seeing you. Thanks for having me on the program.
Yeah, of course. So let's start with this Canadian national team as a whole, right? There's a lot of hype similar to the U.S. right now around this crop of players. I guess coming from a country like Canada, and it's similar to the U.S., what does it mean? Is this a golden generation? And what does golden generation mean?
Well, it's an exciting time for Canada, with all the hype obviously building around Alphonso Davies, but we have to also mention we have a lot of champions right now, which is exciting. We have Kyle Larin, we have Atiba Hutchinson winning in Turkey, we have Alphonso Davies winning in Germany, we have Jonathan Davies winning in France. So there's a lot of positive things happening right now amongst the players. Something that we haven't had in the past, and most importantly, most of them are playing consistently at a high level. So, and they're all young, which is another exciting factor. So, it's good that we're building and branding our players on the global market. I think when we were playing, we had quite a few of us were playing at big clubs, but not everyone was playing consistently, and that's something that we have right now, which is very important. And it's a huge factor, as you know, especially when you're playing against, big competition. Let's face it, Canada hasn't really been tested as of yet in terms of, playing a world powerhouse. But, I think their next matchup against USA and as hopefully we go further into the Gold Cup, they will get tested and start to really get a taste of serious competition.
Yeah. You talk about the players being young, and we talk about this a lot with the U.S. team, is that you can't be really battle tested until you're battle tested, right? And they're going through that right now. And obviously, no Alphonso Davies in this Gold Cup, no Jonathan David, but they still have a crop of players. Kyle Larin's on a scoring tear right now, and it looks like he's approaching your goal scoring record. I mean, wanted to get your take on what you think about him doing well, how you're going to feel if he were to break that mark. I believe he's got 10 goals this year alone for the national team.
No, I mean, hey, listen, records are there to be broken, and I know it's just a matter of time, and for me, it's all good. It's just a blessing to know from where I came from, just to be able to accomplish that in my career is something special. And it's no different than for someone else to beat what I've accomplished, and someone's going to beat him. And further down the line, goals are set to be broken. And, you know, it's a sign of good things to come for me. And I'm happy for him, you know, whether it's him, whether it's someone else, you know, try to beat us, try to take it to the next level. And I'm full support of that.
Yeah. So let's talk about this US-Canada game. How do you see them approaching this game? Obviously, a good crop of MLS players. I think MLS has been a pivotal role in both the development of American players, Canadian players as well. How do you think they'll roll out with this? Do you think they'll be conservative? Do you think they'll play with a different team than they did against Haiti? I mean, guide me on the direction of where you see you know, them approaching this match, or how they play this match.
Yeah, well, I hope they approach it just like every other match. As we know, there is going to be a little more bite to that game. You know, Canada and US has always been a good, healthy rivalry of old, and you know, anytime we meet in a major competition, it only spices things up even that much more. I hope we don't play conservative. You know, let's factor in that both teams are missing some star power. But it's a good test for some of the young guys to prove themselves in a major tournament. Mm-hmm. So I hope we go there and play our game and take it to them. Canada's I'm doing well. We saw USA's last win. I know whether it was 6-1 or 7-1. So they're obviously coming into the game with a lot of momentum as well. And it's going to be a great matchup, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know, interestingly enough, and you know, from playing in a number of tournaments, tiebreakers is going to play into this match, right? Canada are ahead on.
You mentioned 2000 Gold Cup. A lot of people forget that's how we got in to the next phase. Actually, we got in through a flip of a coin because we were tied. I can't think it was South Korea.
Coin. Wow.
Because we were tied on goals, 4 goals against right across the board. It was even Steven. So, and we had to flip a coin. But yes, 4 goals against is very important as you know, going to the next stage.
Yeah, and I believe it goes sort of obviously points, then it's head-to-head goal difference, and then goals scored. And I believe that's where Canada is in front by 1 goal as like the tiebreaker before it goes down into a whole bunch of complicated things. Do you think that changes the way Canada approaches this game, or are they, you know, knowing that a draw and a win can get them through, or do you think that they approach this saying we want to get the 3 points against the U.S. and yeah, if you were to default to a draw, then okay.
Well, I'm you know, in my mind, I'm always thinking, you know, you play it to win, right? You always play to win, but being mindful that, you know, a draw is good enough. So yes, we want to capitalize on our chances. Yes, we want to have supporting numbers forward, but we also don't want to you know, push the envelope too much and push too much numbers forward where we're getting caught on a counter attack, because the U.S. does have transitional speed. They do have guys that could finish. We've seen DK's on a scaring tear as well. So we want to be very mindful of that, but we can't play with that mindset of we're going to sit back. We have to play the game to win, in my personal opinion. And I think everything will work out. As you know, one goal might not seem a lot, but one goal might differentiate between if you're going to play Mexico or if you're going to play, you know, Honduras next. And you want to try to, if you could avoid those teams, you want to do that in the next round.
Yeah. That reminds me of, you know, way back when the U.S. played Thailand in the Women's World Cup, and it was like 13-0 or something like that. And they were hugely criticized for running up the score in a game like that. And the argument was that, hey, you're playing against a lesser opponent, but other people are playing against a lesser opponent as well. So, you know, no disrespect to Martinique, but if someone's going to put up goals on them, you know, somebody else could, and that could be the factor of having to face Mexico in a semifinal or potentially Mexico in a final.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, it's funny. I even tell my kids in my academy, you play to score goals. Let's face it, you know, and I remember that very vivid. The women's U.S. national team took some backlash towards that, and I don't get it, because that is the game. That is the excitement of the game. Now, how you manage that and how you celebrate that and how your demeanor when you score now, you got to be a little bit more delicate. I think you got to be a little more sportsmanlike. You don't run to the, like, when you're winning 12-0, right? You don't got to throw in the face, but it doesn't mean you don't stop scoring. People want to rack up goals. People want to beat goal records. Lyron wants to beat my goal records. He's not going to stop at 5-6 and be like, oh, let me be polite now. No, you keep going, beat it, tear it up if you have to, and keep going. So I'm a big supporter of that. And as you know, goals is everything. Goals for, goals against do accumulate to something and could be a difference between who you're playing in the next round.
Yeah. Is there one player that stood out to you from this Canadian team? Obviously, a lot of youth in this squad. A lot of players who are, again, going through the motions of learning how to play in a tournament, learning how to play in big games under pressure. Is there one player that stood out to you so far as somebody? Maybe they've stood out in the past as well, but that's just having a great tournament so far for you for the Canadian team.
Yeah, I think we mentioned him, and that's Kyle Erin. It's one that is a player that hasn't really found his scoring expertise. Last few years, it's nice to see him confident in front of the goal, because at the end of the day, we're going to need players putting the goals in the back of the net, especially. And let's face it, the Gold Cup is pretty much a preparation for World Cup qualifiers coming up in a month away. So if we can get our goal scorers scoring goals, getting confidence in front of net, it only is going to serve us a lot of joy moving forward. So he's a player that I'm definitely looking to. Of course, we have guys like Osorio. It'll be nice to see him starting to get on the score sheet. I think he could offer a lot more in terms in the attacking phase and getting some goals. And it's nice to see. Yes, it's good to talk about the youth, but it's also nice to see someone like Hoyle out there and leading the charge. You need that experience, need that veteran leadership, and I think he's doing a fantastic job in leading the guys.
Yeah, I got a question for you. You're obviously multicultural background, roots in the Caribbean. What is it like for you to see so many Caribbean nations starting to take football development more seriously? We're starting to see them emerge more. You're starting to see more of this dual national play. I know Canada, that's an important thing for Canada and the US, not recruiting, but identifying and bringing in dual nationals. What's the development of that for you, seeing the Caribbean nations' growth, as well as the importance of the dual national role for the Canadian national team?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see. As you mentioned, as a Caribbean heritage, it's nice to see that side getting their respect. Let's face it, the West Indies and the Caribbean has contributed so much to not only MLS but world soccer. We're starting to see Suriname merge, and let's not forget the golden era of the Dutch team with Edgar Davids, with Juliet, with all these players. They're all from Suriname background. Most of the players, Thierry Henry I believe is Guadeloupe heritage. So a lot of players on the globe market, a lot of players on the US team, Canada team, are benefiting from the talent coming out of raised out of the West Indies. I grew up in that culture. I grew up playing Caribbean style football in these leagues, watching my dad play in these communities. So they contribute so much to my style of football, to play with flair. But it's nice to see the countries now developing and putting resources towards the development of sport, especially when it comes to soccer in these countries. Let's face it, it's sad to see Trinidad go through that rough patch. It's sad to see Jamaica go through that rough patch. It's sad to see, we're now seeing teams like Guyana step up now, Suriname step up. And I think it's good. It's CONCACAF isn't what it was of late. Now we're starting to see these countries emerging. Haiti starting to be a force to be reckoned with, and it just creates more positive competition, and it makes us as so-called US as the bigger countries and Mexico. It only makes them push to put more emphasis in developing their program, and hopefully Canada could do the same, which I think they are.
Yeah, I spent some time with some of the folks from CONCACAF, and it was really interesting to sort of hear their main goals being like, well, it's not just about the US and Mexico and Canada and the few of the other kind of bigger countries. It's about every country that's inside of the Confederation. And there's so many. I think there's 41 or something like that, 39, 41. There's a lot of nations, and it's about developing and bringing more opportunities. And it's not just about the product that you see at the highest level that we see on TV and whatever. It's about sort of that trickle down or that grassroots sort of buildup of giving more opportunities to players from those regions. And the Caribbean has so many of those countries. And it's just good, at least to me, to see this rotation of more teams coming in, more competition, some of those qualifying rounds into different competitions, starting to see some of these players emerge and starting to see them pull from other parts of the world that have benefited, right? When you talked about the Dutch national team, they said that the Dutch national team was borrowing a Caribbean's, a West Indies national team to play with because they had so many players coming from there.
Right. And like you said, it's hopefully this helps build also their leagues, right? In their respective countries. Because it helps develop the players. It helps develop, especially the grassroots. My foundation, my Dear Foundation, we've done extensive work throughout the Caribbean, working inner city programs. So I know firsthand the quality and the potential there. I mean, there's a lot of quality there. They just need proper guidance, proper coaching, and opportunities is what really is needed. So hopefully the Caribbean could do. They've been talking about potentially doing a Caribbean league to support a lot of the smaller countries. I think that would be fantastic to help develop the game. And like I said, it's nice to see those countries, these West Indian countries, doing well.
Yeah. So back to the Canada-US, what's your prediction for this game? Is there any players, you mentioned Daryl DK. Is there any players from the US team that you want to that they need to keep an eye out for, or ones that have impressed you from this US side?
To be honest, and with all due respect, I've really been focused on Canada and really been watching their development. Just because the fact is, you guys know the recipes of success. You've done very well in this Gold Cup in the past. You do what needs to be done. People were talking about Mexico in the first game in tie, and I'm just like, come on, man. You're gonna have a stumble, and that's the game you wanna have the stumble. Your first game. Right now it's out the way. They scored their 3 goals or whatever, 2-3 goals. Now you're going to start to see the Mexico that we know they're going to start coming at it, and no different than the U.S. Right, as the competition gets more intense, you're going to see the cream's going to rise to the top. It's up for us now to match that. Now, can we raise our level now? Can we meet US when we meet up? And I believe we have the quality to do that. And I'm excited for that match. And I'm hoping, of course, Canada pulls it out.
That's awesome. So give me your prediction for this one. Do you think Canada can pull off the win? And how far do you think Canada can realistically go in this tournament? Is a final unrealistic?
No, I think winning it is very realistic. But we have to earn the right. We have to show what we could do to Mexico. I think, to be fair, I think it's going to be a tie game. I think it's going to be a 1-1 game. It's going to be a battle. I'm really looking forward to how, maybe it's going to be a late score. Maybe it's going to be a late goal for one or two countries, and hopefully it's for Canada. But the real test comes the next game, and then the next round. It just gets spicier and spicier because the competition starts to really heat up. So, but I truly believe we have the caliber and the quality to win this Gold Cup.
So let's talk about your book. You just released a autobiography about obviously your life. What was the process, and why did you decide to write this book?
Well, after you retire, you mingle more with the fans. Obviously, my work with ambassador work with Toronto FC. I've spoken to a lot of people, and they mentioned to me, hey, you should write a book. I'm pretty sure you have a compelling story. No one really knew my personal story. I've never shared that. I've always been very professional in terms of handling my questions and steering it and directing it towards just my sport. I never like to go within my personal space, but there's opportunity where I started to say, I'm going to start to journal and write my life story and work on writing a book. At the same time, I kind of got a writer's block. I probably got like a page and a half, and I didn't know which direction to go, where to turn. around that same time, a sports broadcaster here, Brendan Dunlap, approached me with the idea of writing the book. And I said, dude, let's go for it. What was supposed to be more of a soccer story book became more of a personal book. And the reason was because, I know there's a lot of kids that are growing up in inner city communities, a lot of individuals going through a lot of hardship, a lot of difficulties. And I really felt my story could resonate with a lot of people. And if that could inspire others to do the same, for me, it's a win. Not only that, is also telling the story of a young kid that grew up in a non-soccer community, non-supported soccer community, in Metro housing community, and followed his passion, worked hard, tirelessly to achieve that and accomplish that as a street kid, overcoming various obstacles. And I think, if that story, like I said, could help some of these kids growing up in these inner city communities, then for me, the book is a success.
Is there anything from the book, for the listeners of the Qué Golazo pod, is there anything from the book that you think would be applicable to anyone, or any sort of advice you would give from your experiences going through your hardships and now having the chance to reflect and tell your story? Is there any sort of one line or one part of the book that you think would be universally important?
Yeah, just the ebbs and flows of life, just the struggles and the obstacles and the low moments. How do you use low moments to come out of that and rise above that to do something even that amazes yourself, through hard work, through dedication, and through forgiveness of yourself and forgiveness of the situation. I believe everything happens for a reason, but it's up for you to acknowledge that and take everything as a blessing, even though as bad as it might seem or it sound or feel at the time. Take it as a blessing, and it's there for you to better yourself and learn from that experience. We're just coming from obviously a COVID time. A lot of families, a lot of individuals have gone through a lot of mental trauma, a lot of difficult moments, family members sick, passing away. I lost my father last year. So how do you transition from that, and how do you grow from that to become a better person? And that's what my book, which is called D-Row My Life, is all about.
Right. And D-Row My Life, you can find it on Indigo and Barnes & Noble. Is there anywhere else that people can find this book to be able to, whether it's a physical copy or a digital download?
Yeah, you can find out on my personal website, DwayneDeRosario.com. But as you mentioned, you can find it on all major book outlets, Indigo, Chapters. And, of course, your support is much needed. I also talk in depth about the challenges, as playing in the MLS, at the start and going through all those obstacles and the growth of the game and what that was like. So I tell a very vivid picture about that and my experiences of that, playing in the MLS, which I think a lot of the readers will find exciting as well.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Dwayne. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Obviously, we've known each other for a long time, and I wish you all the best. Obviously, you've done so much for the game, not just in Canada, but in the U.S., and I appreciate you taking the time to share a little bit of your journey, and I look forward to reading your book. Thanks, man. I appreciate you. Got to get you those D-Row headphones as well. Let's do it. So everyone, thanks for listening. Jimmy and I will be with you guys all Gold Cup long. You can follow the pod on Qué Golazo pod on Twitter, and you can ask us any questions you want. Hopefully we can get to them, add them to the show, and have a good old time. And obviously you can find this podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, Apple Podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you all so much, and we will see you on Sunday.